our two main focuses today, as we talk about how to maximize your subscription, it is organization for one. So GIS content can multiply very quickly as you start to realize, oh, wait, I can do that in GIS. Or if someone else comes to you and say, hey, can you do this in GIS? A lot of times the answer is yes. So we want to make sure as that data is being created that you are organizing it, because I don't know about you, but I, will create something and then 6 months later think, I know I created that. Where did I find it? So I'm going to show you some ways that you can utilize what is built into ArcGIS Online to help that organization be very thorough. And then also Esri's provided a lot of really cool things in that, if you just have one user, your $500 subscription gets you a lot of things that they've put a lot of time and effort into. So I want to show you some of those. And again, only going to be able to scratch the surface. Could easily do a 3-day class on ArcGIS Online. So hopefully I can share something that you didn't know or that you can use immediately. So just a couple slides, and then the rest of the time we're going to spend in ArcGIS Online. But kind of the two buckets we want to talk about today: organization. So how do we organize both users and content to make this efficient? And then ArcGIS Online Solutions. I'll show you how to deploy. I won't deploy one live because it takes a little bit of time, but we'll show one that I have deployed, and then kind of how you can use those, because that's where when we talk about biggest bang for your buck. If you don't have GIS staff, Esri's done a lot of work for you to get some of those things pre-made so that you can use them. They're kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of data with it. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. And I just noticed, so we've got a Q&A. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put notes in the Q&A. Bill will watch those. I don't know if we'll have time.
We did have one just real quick, just maybe a clarification. Someone asked, you had said a $500 subscription. Was there? Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in just a second.
Okay, perfect.
But yes, thank you for that. Bill, feel free to interrupt. Again, there's a lot of things here. So if I can direct the conversation in any way that'll be more helpful, I'd be happy to do that. So one more slide and then I'll get to that question. But I want to make sure we're all talking the same language. So I don't know if you guys are brand new users or have been using ArcGIS Online for a while, but there are three main types of content. I'm simplifying here, but we've got feature layers that you put into web maps, and then those web maps are put into web apps. You can also interact with those web maps directly. So the three main types of content we're going to talk about, and then the levels of control. So when I talk about being organized, someone's got to be in control of that data and who's using it and how they're using it. So there's lots of levels to that. I don't even think we're going to get through all of these today, but you've got levels at the user level. You can control what they can do. There's groups that we'll talk about. You can control the way people see data through groups. The items themselves have sharing capabilities. And then even further, you can control attributes that are viewable and editable through views of your authoritative data. And then when you create those web apps, those widgets, you can have certain things editable and not editable. So again, lots of levels, not going to get to all those, but I wanted to make sure we're all kind of on the same page there. So what I'm going to do is bring over ArcGIS Online pricing. Bill, I just want to make sure that's visible.
Yeah, yep,
okay,
looks good.
Perfect. Yep. So when I said $500 a year subscription, so with your ArcGIS Online account, you have to have one foundational user, and that has to be, those start at $500 a year. So that's the creator user type. And with that, you get most of what I'm going to show you today. There are some extensions, and again, I won't really have time to get into that, but I'm going to show you the solutions, and all the organization tools I'll show today are available through that $500 a year subscription. So I hope that answers the question. That's just the minimum to get into ArcGIS Online. If you want to use desktop software, you have that ability too. You could use Pro, Basic, Standard, or Advanced. if you want those, that licensing available to you as well. And so you need at least one of these, but you obviously can have many of these, as many of these as you want. But once you have one of those, then you can go to the dependent user types, where you can have, again, as many of these as you want, but this is that first level of control of what your users can see, access, and edit. So these are well named. They are pretty self-explanatory, but a viewer can just view what's available on ArcGIS Online. That is further controlled by groups, but there's no, they can't edit. Even if they happen to get to an app that's got editable data in it, they cannot edit. So that's your first level there. The next level is an editor user. So they can edit and add data that already exists. So they could get into a web map and edit that data. They could get into an app you created and edit it, but those users can't create more maps and apps. That's the limitation there. And the mobile worker just adds on to that editor ability the ability to use mobile applications. So if I hit this view description, it'll give me more specifics about each of those. So this type of user can do, everything the editor did, but also has access to those field apps that they can access on a phone or a tablet while they're in the field. So let me check my notes. So those are the user types. There is an additional level, which we're really not going to talk about today, but that is a role. So you can have a creator user type that is an administrator, so they can see and do everything in that account. But then you can also make that creator just a user, so they can edit all the data they want, but they can't see everybody else's data. That's where the group sharing would come in. So yet another level, but I don't have time to get into those today. So what I'm going to do though is hop in to ArcGIS Online. This is a creator, non-administrator user. So this is what this user will see in our organization. And I'm quickly just going to go through the ribbon at the top, homepage, gallery. You can have a group that has specific maps and apps that maybe people use all the time. You can put them there. You could also put those down here on your homepage. If you know there's quick things you want people to get to right away, that's a good place to put those. Map and scene, just open an empty map or a 3D scene. The next thing I want to get into though is groups. So I'm going to click on that group there. So these are the groups that my user, this demo user, has been invited to. So groups are the place where content and users meets. And so these happen to be solutions that I deployed, but that's the next level of sharing. Really easy to create. So I'm going to hit create, give it a good name. This is the part of administration that sometimes feels tedious, but is super important. A good name, a good summary. Obviously, I'm not doing that. Tags are another thing that you can utilize as you organize your data. And then you have options about who can view the group, just the people in the group, your whole organization, or the public. That'll be a theme throughout sharing. When we get to items can be shared the same way to the whole organization, to just the owner, to groups, or then to the public. You can talk about who can be in the group, how people can join it, if it's invitation or by request, and then who can contribute content. So I'm just going to create this group really quick so you can see. I've got an empty group, nothing's in it. So then you have to invite users. So I'm going to invite myself. And then you have to add content. So that's the next piece I want to talk about. I'll have to move faster. So that's how you get a group started. Again, that's where you have to add people to it and then add the data to it. So I'm going to go back to groups here. and then talk about content. So also notice there's 2 levels of ribbon in ArcGIS Online, depending on which tab you're on. So it gets a little confusing because groups shows up here, but also if I hit content, then I see groups down here. So just got to know, start from the top and work your way down. So a couple of ways to organize content: folders. So these folders in my content, the second level, are just for me. Nobody else can see those. So they're useful, but they don't reach organization wide. Categories, however, are those items that are organization wide. So you can use them a little bit like you use folders, but I will see anything that anybody's categorized in these categories because they're organization wide. So that's a pretty handy tool to use. Let me see. My favorites, I very much underutilize this. This obviously isn't my user, but if you want to favorite something, do that. Then when you go to your favorites, you can just see the 5 apps you use all the time. So that's a great tip for users who maybe are not as familiar with ArcGIS Online, but want to see some apps over and over again. Then your content now is sorted by what's in your groups. And then you can always search as well. The next one I want to go to is my organization. So again, we're in content and we're sorting by those different levels. So in my organization, I've got just the things that have been shared with the organization, kind of that next level of sharing. So what I want to do here, actually I want to go back to, so in my organization, now I can start to see those categories. And so I'm going to click this demo, solutions, and then sewer data management. So if I just want to see those, this is another tip. It starts on grid. I hate looking at them as a grid. If you can hear my dog, I apologize. But I'm going to go to table and view it that way, because then I can see more data in one screen, and that's very helpful for me. So I've got my categories set up. Now, if I'm just looking for things that we've categorized that way, I can see it all at once. The next level is naming. How do you name your data? So we use a naming convention where we put either our name or the client's name, because we've got some client data occasionally on our account, as the first section. And then next we say, hey, what's that thing called? What's the title? After that, the next section is feature layer view. And then we have either demo or authoritative or deprecated, because that is very important as you're managing data. As that data grows, it's important to know which one is authoritative. And so you can mark things authoritative. Let me go to this. So I've got a feature layer. I'm going to back up just a little bit and talk about the types of items that we've got in here. So we've got feature layers. We talked about layers, web maps, and applications. But for feature layers, there's a couple options. Let me see if I've got more here. I was looking for a view, but oh, here. So you can have authoritative data that should be marked as authoritative, but then from there you can make views of the data that's editable and controllable. So you can say, in this view, I'm only going to show these 3 fields and only those are going to be edited. Don't have time to jump into that today, but I will show, when I show that solution that I've deployed, how they're leveraging those. So this is a feature layer. If I want to make sure that that's authoritative, I cannot do that because I'm not the owner of this data and I'm not an administrator. So there's some more options if you are one of those 2 things. And I'll show one of those later. But this shows me that it's shared with the owner only. and who the owner of that data is. Okay. So again, the ways to organize that data: folders, you can have folders, categories, and then the way you name it is important as well. Not just for ArcGIS Online, but it gets even more important when you're pulling that data into ArcGIS Pro, where you can't see those, you can't see some of that information as you're pulling that in. So that's why we like to name things pretty thoroughly. There's a lot of duplication there, but that means no matter where you're seeing the data, it is, it makes sense and you know what you're looking for when you find it. All right. So the other type of data, so that was a feature layer. Then we've got web maps. So these maps have those layers, whichever ones you decide to put in. This is a solution that was deployed. So I didn't have to create this at all. And I'll quickly show a solution. Esri created this for me. I picked not a great one to show because it doesn't have any data. So I'm going to go to the sewer editor web map. So this is a map that was made for those sewer editors to edit the data. I'm going to open it here. And it, once it opens, we'll have some data. So obviously the data didn't come with the solution. We have added that, but the layers were already there. The symbology was already there. That's why those things are really powerful. So in this map, we've got the layers. Let's see what else I wanted to talk about here. So in the map, we've got the layers. Then that map is feeding an application. Let's open this one. And that's sort of how you're building those things. View there. And this is where you have further control over what people edit by the widgets that you have in the application. So see if I have any. This is the viewer. So there's no editing capabilities. Also, I'm not in Naperville, but that's another way to control that. So this app, even if you have editing abilities, you can't edit through the app because it is, there's no way to do it through the web app there. All right, so I'm going to flip over quickly to those solutions and how you deploy them. I'm going to hit the Brady Bunch button, whatever you guys call that button. And then you've got a bunch of options. Again, some of these might depend on your licensing, but you will have the solutions button. And this is where Esri has done a lot of work for you. You can just go find the solution that best meets the issue you're trying to solve. So they're sorted. They also use categories. I'm going to go to state and local governments. Let's go public works. And we've deployed the water distribution management for people. And I was going to find the sewer one, which I can search. So sewer data management, all you have to do is click on it and hit deploy now. It takes just a couple minutes, but long enough that I don't want to redo that here. And then I will show you what is on your account. So if I go to content, you get the solution here and all of the things tied to it, which again is a lot. That's why it's important to understand what the maps do, what the apps do, and then those feature layer views. So if I were deploying this for myself or for a client, the sewer system layer is the authoritative data. So I am going to click on that. And what I want to do is make sure, I'd probably rename it, but also I'm going to go make sure that it's not deleted. And I guess I haven't tried this as not an administrator. If I'm not an administrator, so I cannot mark it as authoritative, but that's the next thing I would do after I deployed it. Make sure that those things that are authoritative, that are the one sewer layer that everybody knows that's got the main data on it, that is marked as such. So I'm going to go back to the overview. Go back one more, sorry, to the solution. So if I click on the item that was created when I made that solution, it's going to tell me it's got a very nice table of contents for what it deployed. So the idea is that there's a group for sewer editors that includes a map. It's got the sewer map notes, so a place you can make notes and not mess with the authoritative data. It's got a view of that authoritative data that is for editing in the map. And then that fills the application that those editors are going to view from a desktop. So again, that was deployed in minutes. Again, it can be a lot. So you're going to want to poke through those a little bit, look at those layers. We can take a look at the authoritative layers so you can see that it is a lot, but you can control with those views what your editors see so they don't get overwhelmed. So if I just click on the manhole layer and go to data, so I don't have any data but the fields, they've tried to fit this for as many people as possible, right? So they've thought of all the data that you might want to maintain and collect. So you're probably never going to use all of these, but it's nice to have them. It's nice to keep them in this authoritative data. And again, when you make that view, you can control what is viewable through the view. I don't think I have time to jump into that today, but that's an easy thing to Google. But I might go ahead, let me see. I think I've got time. I'm going to go back, get lost sometimes in the going back and forth. So that sewer system was the authoritative view, but there's a view that is just for viewing. So what has made this a view only hosted view, sorry, there's lots of use of the word view, is that I'm going to go to settings. The enabling is not editing is not enabled on this layer. So you've made essentially a copy, but it's still linked to that authoritative data. So anytime that authoritative data is updated, that view only layer will also be updated. But nobody can ever edit that view, no matter what their settings are. So that's where those levels of control interact with each other. They can conflict with each other too if you're not careful. So just make sure you understand all of those different options there. So this one on the layer level is not editor enabled. But if I go to the field inventory, then wait for that to pop up. I'm going to go settings and enable. Editing is enabled on this one. And you can even control the types of edits that are allowed. So can they add, delete, update? Can they only update attributes? It's one I've used recently for data I wanted to share with someone. I made 2 fields editable. And then that was it. So they couldn't update geometry and they couldn't edit any other fields in that view. So views are really powerful. You do have to maintain them. But I think it's a great way to make sure what's out there and editable by your staff, your users in your organization is exactly what you want it to be. I'm going to stop for a minute and see. I don't know that I see any more questions, Bill, but I'm going to take a drink.
Nope, not seeing anything. Folks, go ahead and you can put something. They've got a Q&A box down there on the bar. They've got the chat thing as well. You can use that.
But I got 3 more minutes, so I will keep poking through this solution because again, I think they're super powerful. You just have to be able to kind of corral they're just massive because again, they were made for lots of organizations to be able to use them. So if I go back to content again, I'll use the different levels here. If I go to my content, because I deployed that solution, then I can see all of those editors. The other thing I can go back and show, if I go to my organization, and then I can use my categories to find that solution that I wanted to see, the sewer data management. And again, I'm going to go back to the table because that's easier to read. I'm going to look at an application. So again, this is that viewer application that all we had to do was add data to the layers. So we had CAD data, AutoCAD data that we could add. Didn't change the view. Let me go to Roanoke. And so in doing that, in deploying the solution, all I had to do was add that data. And then I already have a viewer that I can share with my viewers and say, hey, look, it's already there. I didn't have to build any apps or maps. So that's the trade-off. It's a little bit difficult to customize, but it is all done for you if you can wade through all of the options.